Today is gonna be the day that we're gonna throw it back to you. I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now. All right. Happy Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter. And welcome back and happy Easter. Happy Easter. For those of you who celebrate, I know some of you may be cooking Easter dinner right now, or maybe you already had Easter dinner. I don't know what time you guys eat. But welcome back, guys. We have a really big show this Sunday evening. Tonight's theme is Maybe You Didn't Know. Maybe you just didn't know. So we have a lot to get into. I do want to start out by giving shout outs to people in the chat, ladies and gents. What is going on, bro? Once the military is completely dissolved, next the roundup and deportation of the members, Khazarian-based society, Black to Khazaria and Patmos. Next, the removal of the Rothschilds plants hiding. Interesting. Shout out to Maritza, says hello and sends a smile. Greetings, Bernard says, Sabby, you're fantastic. Thank you for your podcast. I'm a 3-time Trump voter, but this is now out of control. Everything for Israel. Interesting. Why did you vote for Trump 3 times? I'm curious. I'm always curious as to people who voted for him 3 times. Why? Let us know. Shout out to CBC Voters, says, happy Sunday, Sabby and Eric. What's going on? Greetings, HH, says, the president of Iran. Oh, yeah. Pezeshkian said, does threatening to send an entire nation back to the Stone Age mean anything other than a massive war crime? This is not a matter of political rhetoric. Yeah, Donald Trump is crashing out right now. It's actually embarrassing. It really is. Shout out to Kareem, says Iran is in control and winning. Yeah, they really have all the cards at this point. Greetings, playmakers. What's worse is the sheep that blindly follow both parties. Shout out to Bill, says looking like a good show tonight. I'll be here. Greetings, Blockbuster, says hi. Shout out to Sean, says, Sabby, you should interview The Savior, a young UK streamer, about his work among the UK right, exposing the narrative on Israel. Haven't heard of him. I got to check that out. And my bun is like all over the place. Ugh. Oh, well. Greetings, Mr. Moto. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Psalm 118:24. Shout out to Matthew says, it's been reported that Iran has destroyed the control tower at Ben Gurion Airport, grounding all air traffic in and out of Israel, also destroying the airport's radar. Yeah, a lot is happening, guys. It's like every day it's something new with this war, at least. Greetings, Long. Dong says, what, who's that Beatles wannabe moped? The Beatles wannabe? I don't know. Greetings, Cloudness says, happy Easter Sunday, Sabby Sabs. Everyone in the chat, smash the like, B1 fam. Yeah, hit the like button, guys. Shout out to Nabin says, hello, everybody. Greetings, Hannah says, Marandi. Shout out to Steinbar says, happy Easter. Greetings, Ralph says, the Trump regime needs to be removed from office and tried for war crimes. Yeah, let's see if that happens. Greetings, Doug says happy Easter. And shout out to Rich says Peter Magyar is the front runner with a healthy margin of winning of 67%. Okay, I don't want to keep you guys waiting too much longer because like I said, we have a lot to get into. But again, the theme tonight is maybe you didn't know. Let's go ahead and show you that thumbnail, ladies and gents, dun, 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 to show you what we are discussing tonight. Again, quite a bit to get into. Hard to keep up with some of this stuff sometimes, at least as far as the war is concerned. Tonight, we are discussing, of course, with Professor Mohammad Marandi. You guys have seen him here multiple times. A lot of things we talked about. I had to record that earlier with him because of the time zone difference, but I'm going to show it to you here tonight. But Iran did strike the IDF headquarters. There's a lot going on. Trump is begging Iran for a ceasefire. Guys, it is utter embarrassment. We also get into what happened with Soleimani's niece, who actually, according to Iran, is not his niece. So we're going to get into all of that. We're also going to discuss Erika Kirk just interviewed Caroline Leavitt, who is Donald Trump's press secretary. Apparently, she spoke at this TPUSA event at George Washington University. You guys have got to see some of it. Like this, it's crazy. You got to see some of that. We're also going to get into Donald Trump budget cuts. This is a big one for any of you that have concerns about the budget. And you'll see, I guess you could guess which budget is not being cut, which budget he's asking for more money to go towards. But this is also tied to his recent approval rating. Donald Trump is sinking very quickly, very, very quickly, and it's bad. So far, I have not seen a president in my lifetime that has an approval rating this low. So we're going to get into all of that. We're also going to discuss, that is Milei down there in that square underneath Erika Kirk. He's a leader of Argentina. Guys, Milei is working with Netanyahu right now. We're going to get into this bombshell that was just dropped that Argentina is helping create a mini Israel in Argentina. And I'm also going to go through a little bit of the history of Argentina so that you can understand why they would approve supporting a genocidal state like this. We're going to get into all of it. I'm also going to discuss, this is one I've been waiting to talk about for a while, and I now have more information about it. There is deed theft that is happening in New York City. It's been going on for quite a while. The governor is aware. City councilors are aware. Like everyone is aware about this. But the provisions that have been put in place is not stopping it from happening. And people are still having their homes stolen from them in New York City. So we got to talk about that. The woman that you see there in that fourth square, she is one of the assembly members that has been sounding the alarm about that. So there's a lot going on, ladies and gents. Measured Men said yes, and in Georgia as well. Yeah, it's not just happening in New York, but guys, I'm telling you, it can happen anywhere. And the biggest thing about that is they tend to target, unfortunately, a lot of elderly people. It really does remind me of the subprime mortgage crisis all over again. So we're going to get into all of that, ladies and gents. The theme again tonight is maybe you didn't know. And maybe when we get into these stories, maybe you'll realize, hey, maybe I didn't know some of these things. So we're going to get started with that interview with Professor Marandi. If you have not done so, please do me a solid and smash that like button. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. Okay, let's go ahead and get into it, ladies and gents. So again, like I said, Professor Marandi is in a different time zone. And so I had to talk to him earlier today to get this information. But he gives a lot of updates on what's happening in Iran right now, including the helicopter rescue mission. We get into more of that and everything that's transpired as of this morning. So let's go ahead and get into that here. Hey, hey. Welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, Sabrinasalvati. My special guest today is Professor Mohammad Marandi. You have seen him here before. Professor Marandi, welcome back during these crazy, crazy times.
Thank you, Sabrina. It's always a great pleasure being on your show.
All right, Professor Marandi, I want to start off by talking about this rescue mission that happened in Iran. On Friday, I reported that there were it seemed like two helicopters that were shot down by Iran. The U.S. media confirmed that one of the pilots had been rescued. They are now confirming Sunday that that other pilot who was missing has now been apparently rescued as well, although I haven't heard that from a number of sources. But there has been some confusion about what's been struck down, what hasn't been struck down. And there was another report that these Black Hawk helicopters that were a part of that rescue mission were also struck down. So Al Jazeera has now confirmed, and I want to share my screen here. They have now confirmed that apparently they're confirming Iranian state media and what Iranian state media has said about that. So actually, let me come back out for just a second and make that bigger so that we can see that full screen. So I'll show you what they said, because I think a lot of people, there's a lot of confusion and people are trying to find out what's real and what isn't. So this is what Al Jazeera just said.
State television seems to have released these new images of the aircraft or aircrafts. What do we know exactly?
Well, actually, the footages are coming after the initial report that came out from the Iranian side about the downing of a C-130 as well as two Black Hawks. This is the claim that Iranians put forth, and later we've got these footages coming from the state TV showing that there are aircraft being targeted in the southern areas of Isfahan province, and they're saying that it was part of the search and rescue mission in the Kohkiluya and Bor Ahmed, located in the western parts of the capital. Very earlier, we got the reports about the downing of another fighter jet. And on that province, the local authorities are saying that at least 10 people have been killed without any details, whether it's a result of any direct confrontation, ground force, or any other impact. They're saying that they are killed as a result of these strikes. But it's still, speaking of the recent developments, the footages coming out, we've got the reaction from the Iranian side, who actually is selling it as a victory, quite contradictory to the statements and claims by the American side about the failed and actually obliterated nature of the Iran's air defense system. We've got this reaction from Speaker of the Parliament, Mohammad Ghalibaf, who has been very vocal over the course of past weeks. And he said if the United States gets 3 more victories like this, it will be utterly ruined. Also, the military side, the joint military headquarters of Khatamul Anbiya came out with this statement saying that following the enemy's desperate and hostile actions to rescue their downed fighter pilots, the enemy's aggressive aircraft in southern Isfahan have been hit and destroyed with the divine assistance and help of God Almighty during a joint operation by heroic warriors of the Revolutionary Guard and Basij in cooperation with the law enforcement force. Also, we've got the reports in the Iranian media saying and calling its repetition of the Operation Eagle Claw back in 1980. It was an operation by the Americans to rescue their diplomats in the hostage crisis back in time, and it was also a failed operation. And
so you get the point here, but this is the first time I saw Al Jazeera confirm it. And I'm not sure if you've seen this as well, Professor Marandi, but Donald Trump and, of course, the U.S. government, they tried to deny these claims. Donald Trump right now, I do just want to share this with everybody so that people know what's going on and why you may not be able to see more of this going forward. Donald Trump right now, they're trying to block satellite imagery. Just to show you guys, it says satellite imaging company Planet Labs says it will indefinitely withhold Iran war imagery after a request from the Trump administration. So Donald Trump is trying to block it so that people can't see what's actually happening. So I want to get your thoughts on this, Professor Marandi. It's very obvious to me that the U.S. is obviously not winning here, but go ahead.
Yes, without a doubt. Yesterday, the United States lost 2 jets, and or a couple of days ago. I'm confused too, and 2 pilots were missing. They carried out search and rescue operations. At that time, they also lost 2 helicopters. One was crash landed in Iraq, and another was damaged. And then they carried out this rescue operation, and 2 C-130s were destroyed, along with 2 helicopters and 2 drones. And these are the images of those those planes and those helicopters that you see. The Iranians say that they brought them down. And then later on, the Americans bombed them in order so that nothing would remain. There is confusion as to what happened to the soldiers inside these planes, and the Iranians believe that there were significant casualties when the planes crash landed. But we'll have to see how it plays out. But there's no doubt that this is a defeat for the United States. I think it's clear why Trump forced out so many generals. They were telling him not to do these operations, not to escalate the war, from my understanding. And he is hell-bent on doing so. So far, it's not doing well. He said Iran no longer has air defenses. Obviously, it does. The United States, its aircraft is not safe over Iranian airspace. So over the last couple of days, we've seen a number of helicopters destroyed or damaged. We've seen a number of planes destroyed, and the ground offensive hasn't even begun yet.
Yeah, I want to show everyone this as well, because they are starting to admit this on some Western corporate media, because again, like once those satellite images were released, they could no longer deny it. And a lot of times they just repeat the talking points from the State Department. But they also went on to say this, and I want to show this to people because I think this is important to see. This is coming from a retired U.S. Army colonel. He was speaking to ABC. I want people to hear what he said here.
Colonel Gagnor, what does this mean for U.S. jet strikes and other aerial missions moving forward?
That the skies are not as safe as they perhaps presumed. My guess is that this was daytime. My guess is that the Iranians used what's called infrared. So they used detection that's passive, that used heat differences. The president did say that their radars roll down, and so he probably can claim that legitimately. But the fact that there are still anti-aircraft kinds of capabilities that are based on heat temperature differences that can identify aircraft and still target aircraft is probably what got this F-15.
Yeah. So again, not good for the United States, because what it goes to show you is I think that Donald Trump, and I also think that Benjamin Netanyahu, I think the West in general has greatly underestimated Iran. I think they were not prepared. I showed a video the other day where, and I don't know what you call this missile, but I saw it. It was going into Israel. This missile from Iran was able to defeat 12 interceptors that were coming at it. And then all of a sudden, the missile just, it seemed like it split and it took off in a different direction. I had never seen that before. And I just don't think the US or Israel is really prepared to deal with this or to actually tackle this.
Yes, I think that that is the arrogance of empire, and they always underestimate their adversaries. And Iran is a country which is has been independent for 47 years. Its religious ideology creates or helps enhance the steadfastness and resilience, but also this has the 47 years of resilience. Remember, this is our third war that the United States has imposed upon us. That they encouraged Saddam Hussein to invade Iran in 1980. Then they began to support him with chemical weapons through the Germans. They entered war on behalf of Saddam Hussein in 1988, directly fighting against us. And then, of course, 9 months ago, they waged a war along with Netanyahu, and we have this. So you have this a nation that is resilient, it is independent, it supports the oppressed, it stands up against the aggressor, and many young Iranian scientists, they have been able to, over the years, devise or create weapons technology that even the United States itself does not have, despite all the sanctions. And then they were able to devise a defense strategy, create underground missile bases, drone bases, factories, defense capabilities that despite over 5 weeks of aggression and slaughter, and a combined force of the United States and the weapons that it's given to the Israeli regime, because the Israeli regime without the United States is nothing, but the United States has given it everything. So this combined force has been constantly attacking Iran. Its proxies in the region have been assisting it across the Persian Gulf. Countries like Turkey have been complicit by allowing intelligence gathering through AWACS and radar systems. Despite all that, you see that Iran is firing missiles, firing drones, and bringing down aircraft after this period of time. And I find it to be quite extraordinary. And this is, I think, a sign that an arrogant empire, a very evil empire, has failed to acknowledge the capabilities of its victim, underestimate them, seeing them as somehow camel jockeys and backward people and sand so and so and all that. And this is, of course, something that I think many of your viewers would appreciate. So during the 12-day war that they imposed as we were negotiating, they thought Iran would collapse within 24 hours. It was going to be a house of cards. And then it was Netanyahu was begging for a ceasefire. And then they went and regrouped, rearmed, increased the offensive capability, I guess, tenfold by bringing in everything that the United States has, which is much bigger than what the Israeli regime has. And they launched another war as we were negotiating, another blitzkrieg attack. So again, Iran was supposed to collapse. They murdered, they martyred Ayatollah Khamenei. They murdered senior commanders, but yet nothing happened. And since day one, Sabrina, people have been on the streets every day at night. I don't know if you've seen the footage across the country. And then I don't know, I'm not good at dates. Just like I I don't remember when those two fighter jets were brought down, including the one that you alluded to, but it was the day before yesterday, I think. But just near here, just where I am, if you were here right now, you could walk from here to a square called Artish Square. Artish Square. There was there was a gathering there near the square, and they bombed it, and the woman was murdered. So they bombed demonstrations. And one of the demonstrations that I participated in during the month of Ramadan, which was Quds Day, it's a day to that they every year on the last Friday of Ramadan they gather to state their support for the Palestinian people. They bombed that gathering too, and there they murdered a woman. So the Americans and the Israelis are constantly bombing demonstrations, and in Tehran, at least 2 people that I know of have been killed as a result of these missile strikes on demonstrations. Now, I don't know if you saw this clip where there's this young Iranian woman who she was talking about why people chant Allahu Akbar and why they don't run away when there are strikes. And then the missile struck. And then people started chanting and no one ran. No one screamed. They continued to, I tweeted different footage of this and Western media says nothing. And one of the fascinating things, Sabrina, is that like you'd see like teenager girls in these demonstrations. And then when the missile strikes, they don't budge. They stand their ground. They don't scream. They don't run away. Teenage boys, old men and women. And then the West wants to liberate these women. They bomb them and these women don't budge. They have to liberate those Western collaborators of empire. I've never seen such a thing. I've never heard of such a thing before in my life. The way in which these young kids, these teenage girls and boys, they could go home and do what teenagers do. Mm-hmm. Or when the bombs strike their protests, they could run away and scream and stampede. None of that. The footage is there. So we're dealing with a monstrous empire that looks down upon us and says that we are worthy of death. Why? Because Trump himself says he's going to obliterate Iran. He's going to send us back to the Stone Age. Have you seen a single Western media outlet, legacy media, mainstream media, condemns Trump and say you're a murderous monster for saying that you're going to send Iran back to the Stone Age? Have you heard The Guardian say anything? Nope. The Independent, the New York Times, the Washington Post? These are the monsters that we're dealing with. And there's no different between the different factions of the elites. They're all the same. Forget alternative media and the fact that people in Iran know that how where public opinion stands. But I'm talking about those. There's no difference between The Guardian and Fox News when it comes to the empire. One is more sophisticated, more nuanced, the other more bombastic. Both serve a similar purpose. They have their own audiences, but at the end of the day, it's the Epstein class. It is it's the oligarchy. It's those ruling elites that own all this. The same people who own the government. So he's talking about sending us back to the Stone Age where we belong, a civilization which has thousands of years of history. And what is our sin? When all others are complicit with the empire, we are steadfast and say we will not relinquish the Palestinian people. We will not stop our support for the Palestinians. We will not accept genocide. So they carpet bomb Beirut as we speak. They constantly carpet bomb cities in Iran. And they continue to massacre Palestinians. And they make threats to wipe us out. And Western media has no problem. In fact, if you watch Western media, if you watch America, if you watch Australian or British or Canadian or American media, you'd think that Iran started this war.
Yep. Yeah, I know. I have to keep reminding people about that. Um, one of the things that happened, and there has been some hypocrisy pointed out about the power plant attack coming from Iran's foreign minister here. Remember the Western outrage about hostilities near Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine? Israel and U.S. have bombed our Bashir plant 4 times now. Radioactive fallout will end life in GCC capitals, not Tehran. Attacks on our petrochemicals also convey real objectives. Yeah, so this is the big hypocrisy a lot of people were pointing out. Like, of course, the West, the United States, were very upset about those, power plants being bombed in Ukraine. But here is the U.S. doing the same thing to Iran. So that was something that he pointed out there. And then Firkin shared the panic that is coming from the Gulf states, which I think this is important as well, because this would impact them.
Studies and academic concentration of radioactive material that went westward might not be sufficient to imperil life a la Chernobyl, but more serious is the threat of radionuclides, radioactive material in the water, because once you get an appreciable amount of radioactivity in the water, that precludes desalination, excuse me. And as we know, the Gulf countries rely almost exclusively on desalination plants to get their water.
A wave of Iranian cluster missiles has hit at least 10 locations in central.
So that part right there, like they think that they're hurting Iran, but they're actually putting those other Gulf states in danger. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, there are a couple of things that we can talk about here. One is that these countries in the Persian Gulf, they brought this upon themselves. They are complicit in this war. They allowed the Americans to use those military bases to conspire against Iran. They continue to allow the Americans to use their bases against Iran. They allow them to use their airspace against Iran, their coastal waters against Iran, their land against Iran, and not just inside the bases, outside of the bases. The Americans are firing missiles at Iran from outside these bases. They've taken a lot of their military hardware to different areas in these countries to hide from the Iranians, and they're hiding their soldiers in hotels and other buildings. So when they conspire against Iran, when they facilitate death and destruction, then they should be blaming themselves for this. If these regimes had told the Americans, if they tell them today that, okay, no, you can no longer use our territory, our airspace, or anything to strike Iran, you must leave. We'll continue to have excellent relations, business relations, but you can't use us anymore to strike Iran. The war would be over. Of course, they will have to pay Iran for all the damage and the murder that they've helped carry out. All these children who have been massacred, all these women, all these innocent men in petrochemical plants that were burned to death, all of them leaving behind orphans and families. There's a price that they'll have to pay for these crimes. But it would be over. So there are no, for Al Jazeera to point this out, Al Jazeera should be wondering or saying out loud, which it can't, of course, what role did the Qatari dictator have in this, and the other dictators in the Persian Gulf region that assisted the United States, along with everyone else? That's one issue. The second is, of course, the recklessness of Trump and of course, the Zionists. The Zionists don't care if everyone in our region dies of radiation because we're all Amalek. We're all subhuman. We're all lesser. We're not humans like the Zionists. We're animals. So that's why they carpet bomb Beirut. And that's why Western journalists, in order to cover up for them, say that these are Hezbollah strongholds. When Western journalists based in Beirut, they say, they call these Hezbollah strongholds when they bomb and flatten apartment blocks. Why? Because they don't want the world to know that they're just bombing people and destroying cities. They're flattening cities in the south of Lebanon, just like they did in Gaza. You're not going to hear that in the West because they support genocide. They support mass murder. They don't care for the Lebanese or the Palestinians or the Iranians. Just, I wish I tweeted this so your viewers can find it. I think it was Sky News. I'm not sure. But when they were talking about the pilots that in Iran we've been discussing earlier together, and he was saying, what did this? They brought this analyst on and said this has brought a human dimension to the war, something like that. I mean, all these kids who were killed by these pilots, by these soldiers that didn't have a human dimension to them. None of this slaughter that we're seeing every day, bombing bridges and slaughtering the people who are picnicking under the bridge, none of that had a human dimension for Sky News and for its guests who come on. Only the pilot whose plane was hit and he's somewhere in Iran. Only he brings us a human dimension. That is the worst form of racism. That is the ugliest form of racism. And that tells you what sort of empire we're dealing with. And it's not just the leader, it's not Trump. What's the difference between this psychopath in the White House and those analysts on, I think it was Sky News? But it doesn't have to be Sky News. If I said almost any other Western media outlet, you wouldn't be surprised. If I said this was on the BBC or if it was on MSNBC or CNN, you'd say, "Oh, yes, right," because it's normal. This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with an empire that dehumanizes, that lies, and that tries to prepare its population so that they will be more accepting of slaughter and massacre. And no one ever, on the very first day, they slaughtered 165, 68 kids and a couple of dozen teachers. Did they apologize? Did they express remorse? Did anyone in the Western media say, we've been committing crimes against humanity? Of course not. The only thing is Trump is a fool. Trump is destroying the United States. Trump is making gasoline prices go up and all that. But no one says that this war is, we are evil. No one says that. No one, there's no human, there are no human beings apparently in Iran, in Lebanon, in Gaza. We're all just Amalek.
Yeah, I mean, well, speaking of Trump being a fool, this is what he's saying now. He's making more threats. People have to understand that these are war crimes. Donald Trump said Tuesday will be Power Plant Day. He said this here. And Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Excuse my language, Professor Marandi, but open the fucking straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah, President Donald Trump. Here is Donald Trump openly threatening war crimes yet again. At the same time, there appears to be, let me show people what's happening. These allegations here from what is believed to be Qatar. And I say allegations because it hasn't been confirmed just yet. But it does appear there's some talks happening in Qatar. Doha, Qatar becomes the first Gulf state to decide on withdrawal of U.S. forces. Right now, I say this is unconfirmed, but it appears there's some movement here where they are talking about withdrawing the U.S. military forces from the Gulf region because of everything that's happening with this war and the toll that it has on the Gulf states as well. Donald Trump making those threats there, the war crimes. He said this is coming Tuesday. Qatar possibly talking about withdrawing U.S. troops from Qatar. But at the same time, Donald Trump apparently has been asking for a ceasefire, and he said Iran had 48 hours. It's very clear. It's like Donald Trump is basically, Iran holds all the cards at this point. And Donald Trump, it seems like he is begging to try to find a way to get out of this while at the same time escalating it.
There's no doubt. And he brought this upon himself. And Netanyahu brought this upon the United States. And the Zionists have brought upon the world. What we're seeing today is the result of, Joe Kent said it in his resignation letter, that there was no threat to the United States. There was no nuclear weapon being built. That's all nonsense. He said this is about the Zionist lobby and the Israeli regime. So the global economic catastrophe that is emerging, this is going to get very bad, Sabrina. It's going to change the lives of everyone across the planet. And it's happening in weeks. It's not far off. People don't recognize that what we're seeing is just the tip of the iceberg. These, what the Israeli regime has done and what Trump has done through this aggression is create a situation where we will be seeing, if this continues, a global economic collapse worse than 1929. And what Trump is now doing by threatening to destroy Iran's infrastructure and to take it back to the Stone Age is going to force Iran to retaliate. And Iran will destroy the critical infrastructure of all those Arab regimes, including Qatar, in the Persian Gulf, because they are a part of this war. And so that would mean that even if tomorrow or next week or next month or 2 months from now, the Iranians agreed to allow the Strait of Hormuz to function normally, there will be no oil. There will be no LNG. There will be no petrochemicals. There will be no fertilizer. There will be no ships. There will be no tankers. And that means that the economic crisis will be permanent for many, many years to come. And Trump and Netanyahu and the Zionist lobby and the Israeli regime, the world will see that it is they that brought it upon them. In India right now, things are getting pretty bad. But India has very little reserves. But again, this is just the beginning. All these Arab regimes have to do is to tell Trump to go, to leave. And a big part of the problem would be resolved. But they don't have agency. They're just proxies. Qatar right now is saying things, but it's not doing anything. We haven't seen any sign of that. They've been just as complicit as anyone else. They actually hosted CENTCOM. And it's not just Iran, Sabrina. They use these bases to bomb Yemen. They use these bases to bomb Syria before they brought al-Qaeda to power. They use these bases to invade Iraq. We hated Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein, at their encouragement and with the support of these Arab regimes who gave him hundreds of billions of dollars, he invaded our country. He waged war against us, killed so many people in our country. But when the United States wanted to wage war against Iraq, against Saddam Hussein, the Iranians opposed it and said, we despise Saddam, but you have no moral legitimacy to invade the country. These regimes facilitated it. These same dictatorships who were allies of Saddam, they gave the United States the bases and the land and funding to carry out the invasion of Iraq. So these countries have helped to murder people in Yemen, in Iran, in Iraq, in Syria. Iran will not allow this to continue anymore. That's one of the key changes that will have to take place. The key reason why Iran is going to control the Strait of Hormuz from now on is not just about getting reparations from these regimes, but it's also to make sure that these regimes are no longer platforms for aggression. They have to behave like normal countries.
Well, Israel is taking quite a hit. For those who have not seen this, the IDF, this is a big one here. 1 second. I don't know if everybody has been paying attention again, because Western media isn't covering a lot of these things that we're showing you, because they don't want people to realize just how powerful these hits have been. But Iranian missile hit key military targets in Tel Aviv. The Ministry of Defense, the IDF General Staff, and senior military command in the middle of the city. So Tel Aviv has been hit pretty hard. Professor Marandi, I've shown people a number of times on here, but there have also been reports that are finally claiming that the IDF it's collapsing, that they have been hit very hard. They don't have the manpower that they used to have. And also it was reported by The Intercept that the US government is, of course, undercounting the number of casualties of US troops also in Iran. So that is making the rounds as well. But I think people needed to see that, like a lot of the videos that I've shown people on here, Western media is not showing people. Western media, they're not showing people these powerful hits that Iran has done in Tel Aviv. And so Benjamin Netanyahu is getting on camera and he's lying and he's saying they're winning. Donald Trump is telling people they're winning, which, by the way, he's MIA right now. Donald Trump apparently, it said he's not going to be making any appearances over the next 24, 48 hours. We don't know what's going on with that, but they're lying to you. And now they're trying to get control of the satellite imagery so that you can't see what's actually happening.
Yeah, it's the whole thing is one big catastrophe. And of course, these are all crimes against humanity. And Western media, remember, as I said earlier, Western media is only criticizing Trump for his foolishness and his unstable behavior. It's not criticizing him for carrying out crimes against humanity.
Right.
The New York Times is not, people there are not pulling out their hair saying he's threatening to send Iran back to the Stone Age. That's not the debate that's taking place in mainstream media in the United States. Just as there was no debate over the 165 children. There's been wall-to-wall coverage of the jets, what's going to happen, or this is a human story, but there was no such discussion about the kids, the Iranian kids. They didn't spend a week or days talking about these little girls. They'd never attacked Trump saying that you've committed crimes against humanity. This is where things stand, and that's why we call it the Epstein class, because the Epstein class has no humanity. They have no moral values. They're utterly immoral. Just as, just like what they did to little girls in the United States, they can do to girls in Iran too, in a different way, just slaughter them. They don't even report what they're doing. They talk about women emancipation. And when that missile hit the protesters, a woman was killed. Women were in the protest. And then there was this, as I said, this footage of a young woman, a PhD student at the University of Tehran, who was explaining in English how, I tweeted this, who was explaining in English, just before the missile struck, that, people here are chanting Allahu Akbar. Why do they chant this? And why is it that they're so sad? And then the missile struck. And she continued saying, wow, it's amazing. The missile struck right now. And people continued chanting. And literally what she was explaining happened. And she continued, you would think that this footage would be all over Western media and they would be interviewing, seeking out this young woman and saying what happened. And it's amazing that as you were talking about, courage and people, this happened, and then people started chanting the same words that you were talking about. Oh, you'll only find it in tweets like mine or yours or others who may incidentally see it online. These women need emancipation. These women have to emancipate.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. A couple more things here that I also wanted to share. We have to talk about Soleimani's niece. This is another thing that the Trump administration has implemented. This one came directly from Marco Rubio. Max Blumenthal shared this. The U.S. regime has taken hostage the niece of Soleimani and her daughter after revoking their lawful permanent residency. The action follows the regime's kidnapping of Venezuela's lawful president, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife, who are now being held hostage in New York. So this came through the other day. U.S. agents arrest the niece of Iran's Soleimani after Rubio revoked the green card. Again, just direct attack here, personal attack because of the war in Iran. Like, this is, for those who are not aware, remember Donald Trump was the one that ordered the kill hit on Soleimani. If we want to talk about how things could have been different, that's one of the things that could have been different if he would have left Soleimani alone. Another one is that Donald Trump is the one that broke away from the Iran nuclear agreement, which we also had. So it's just, he has caused more escalation. But this act right here in itself, to punish someone just because of who they're related to, because you have this war with Iran, as a way to try to, I guess, stronghold Iran in a way, this is absolutely ridiculous.
You know, it's even more ridiculous than you think. Yesterday, General Soleimani's daughter contacted me and told me that there is no such person in the United States. Anyone, and
I think
why they
I
just
think you froze for just a second. You stopped at there is no such person, but go ahead from there.
Yeah, I was saying that General Soleimani's daughter contacted me yesterday and said, we don't have any relatives in the United States. There is no one there. So God knows who they've arrested and who they've been torturing and tormenting, if anyone at all. It's so bizarre what's going on in the United States with the Trump regime.
Oh my God, this is wild. This is crazy. Well, I will say this. It appears that Iran is definitely also winning the narrative war, believe it or not, because a number of people are pointing out this is a big win, I think, for Iran, definitely not the United States. So it appears that France made some type of deal with Iran where their ships can still pass through the Strait of Hormuz. And so it's kind of a slap in the face to Donald Trump and, of course, the West in general, because Emmanuel Macron is apparently ally of the United States, also a part of NATO. But at the same time, he realizes he has to look out for people in his country. So this is the first breakaway that I see where he said, look, I got to help my people and we have to make sure our people are covered here. And I'm pretty sure something like this makes the Trump administration very, very furious, but it makes me wonder how many others will follow. But it seems there was a deal that was made here.
Yes, and it also shows that the Europeans and the French know that this war is not going well and that the United States is going to fail. And that's why they're trying to begin to cooperate with Iran. You know, Sabrina, none of this had to happen. I've said this elsewhere. There's a really good book, I think, called Going to Tehran, written by Flint and Hillary Leverett, who worked in the White House under George W. Bush. Flint was the head of the Middle East under Condoleezza Rice, and Hillary was the head of the Persian Gulf. And that's where they met and got married. She's Jewish, he's Catholic, both educated at the best U.S. universities. They were in the White House. So Flint resigns over Iraq, Flint Leverett, over the war in Iraq. And he writes and she writes, together they collaborate. They write a book called Going to Tehran, which is a good book. I would advise your viewers to buy it and to read it. And it deals with a lot of the myths about Iran and the history of the relationship and the myths about Iran itself. And ultimately, it says that the best thing to do is for the United States to go to Tehran, just like with China, to find some sort of solution. But all the analysts, whether Democratic or Republican, all the think tankers, attacked them relentlessly. All of them. It wasn't like there were 2 who supported them or 3 who, and then 20. Everyone attacked them. The mainstream media wrote terrible reviews, or they ignored them. But it's a good book. And if they had listened to them instead of listening to the Zionists, then we wouldn't be in this war. And in fact, we would probably be in a different place altogether. And that's how the United States, as Joe Kent is saying, is being pushed towards conflict and greater destruction by the Israeli regime, by the Zionist lobby. As I said, it's a book that I would advise your viewers to read.
I'll have to put that one on my list as well. But like I said, it seems like Iran is winning the narrative war here because more people are waking up. I want to show people this one too. This is a big one. I think people have a lot of misconceptions about Iran here. And Dropsite News shared this. I shared it too. It's really making the rounds. For those of us from Tupac generation, this is one of the things that was shared. It was a missile with an image here, and it says, "In memory of Tupac, Killuminati." So you guys got to go listen to Tupac if you never did to fully understand this. But what Dropsite News put here is that an Iranian Shahed drone heading toward enemy targets today was seen bearing a sticker reading "In memory of Tupac Shakur and Killuminati," referencing his 1996 album, The Dawn Killuminati, The 7-Day Theory. The album's opening track, "Bomb First, My Second Reply," is about defiance, survival, and resistance to power, themes that closely mirror Iran's wartime messaging. Iranian forces and allied groups have increasingly incorporated global anti-establishment pop culture into their messaging and psychological warfare in their viral Lego videos, and with references like this. Lines from the track resonate with the framing: "We didn't even come to hurt nobody, but it's my life or your life. Got nothing to lose, got nowhere to go. Ride for the cause, I'll die for the cause. Plan, plot, strategize, and bomb first." A lot of people are waking up, and a number of people are saying, "I didn't know Iran knew who Tupac was. I didn't know Iran knew, about, as much about like people like Malcolm X and all this type of stuff." And I think this is good because it is making people aware. And I'd say this before, like, Americans are very propagandized. We are. But I continue to tell people that the West is very small. And I think that it takes getting out of your bubble to really see how the rest of the world, which is bigger than the West, really lives and is really, understanding what is happening even on our side of the globe. So this message here, people are like, "Whoa, I didn't know they knew about this, etc." So people are starting to see that we've been heavily propagandized and we've been fed a lot of lies by the West.
Oh, absolutely. And I have to be very thankful to you and to others like you who've been courageously telling the truth to your audiences. Actually, that young woman who I told, if you could find that clip, I tweeted it on the last Friday of Ramadan. So it was 3-4 weeks ago. If you can find that footage of that woman, and others have too, I think some of our mutual friends tweeted it. It's quite stunning that, you have these, someone sent me a clip of a woman in the United States. I didn't know the woman went to school. She found out that all these little or people, if they saw that this woman who was reporting while that missile struck the bombing demonstrations, she's a PhD student at the University of Tehran, speaking in English, broadcast, basically speaking live as the bombs strike. And maybe, you could show that clip at some point to your audience. And so people would recognize that Iran is very different. Iranian culture, its religious traditions, it's support. I mean, it's Iran that's, despite being under such duress, it's been supporting Allah. And of course, right now we should also remember what's happening to the Cuban people. They are also being strangled. Another barbaric statement by Trump was when he lost the Supreme Court ruling over tariffs, and he got angry and had a press conference, and he said, I can destroy countries, but I can't impose a dollar tariff on it. And he was talking about Cuba. And no one in the media said, what do you mean destroy countries? What do you mean? No one in the legacy media, Trump's hardcore opponents have a problem with sending Iran back to the Stone Age, as they say, or destroying Cuba. Their problems with Trump lie elsewhere. They have zero humanity. And their journalists, just mercenaries.
Yeah. Well, Professor Marandi, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Sabrina. It's always an honor being on your show.
Hey, guys, this was a Sabby. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in for that. Again, I had to record that with Professor Marandi because of the time zone difference. So I recorded with that with him earlier this morning. So hopefully there's something that you saw during that interview, during that discussion, that maybe you didn't know before, but you know now. Like, I didn't realize, like, the whole thing that happened with Soleimani, alleged niece in the United States. I didn't realize that wasn't even his niece. So Marco Rubio and the Trump administration have arrested somebody and allegedly trying to deport somebody. Somebody's there. I don't know who this person is, but they just picked up some random person. That's how crazy this administration. It's just crazy. Absolutely crazy. But you can learn a lot from Professor Marandi. You can learn a lot. I'll go ahead to the super chats and then we'll get to the next story here. All right. Hey. Thank you for the super chat, Conservative 784. Love the show. Thank you. Thank you, Lady Studio. I wouldn't be surprised if Iran put out another Lego diss track. Oh yeah, depicting the rescued airmen or other soldiers tied up on underground. So they already made another video. I can't show that one on here. It's on social media. You can find it on X and on TikTok, but I can't play that one on YouTube. But yeah, they already have. Thank you, Courtney. It's happening here in Chicago too. You must be talking about the deed theft. We'll get to that as well. Marvin says, Sabby, looking solid. How is the weight training going? Oh, it's going great. It's going great. I got like guns now, man. I got guns. I can probably bench press people. Now. Thank you, Near the Far World. We need to get Professor Marandi on BP. Breaking Points, Crystal Collin Friends, and I think that's the Majority Report, etc. I'm actually surprised they haven't had him on there. Professor Marandi has been coming on this show since after October 7th, 2023. So about 2 years, I think Professor Marandi's been coming on the show. So I'm surprised they haven't had him on there yet. That's interesting. But they should talk to him. Thank you, Pat. Mohammad Marandi is an honorable and honest man. Thank you, Sabby, for having him on your show. Thank you, Servant of the Most High. The Dennis Black people of America love you, Professor Marandi, Miranda Black, Hebrews of America, price for your nation. Thank you for the liberation of us and an acknowledgement. And I think you said how many, but I don't know what happened to the rest of it. But thank you. Thank you, Robin. Hi, Robin. Thank you, Professor Marandi, for speaking out, sending love, strength, and solidarity from Southeast U.S. Thank you, Kenman. Thanks to Dr. Marandi for dumping on The Guardian. And thank you for this one. People who read The Guardian think AOC is great. And thank you for this one. Fans of The Guardian love Jon Stewart. Yeah, The Guardian never goes as far as they should, Thank you, Pirate Justin. Trump has lost his fucking mind. Thank you, Texas. Hello, Professor Marandi. Iran's trolling with Lego videos is on point and epic. Glad you're still okay. Praying for you, the country. Marandi 2028. He was born here. Yeah, Professor Marandi was born in the United States, for those who are not aware. And there has been this trend going around on X recently where people are saying President Marandi or he should be President Mohammad Marandi. And people are like, well, how can he do that? I'm like, well, he was born here. So he lives in Iran, but he was born in the US. Thank you, Marie. Does the professor know the real reason why Trump went to war with Iran? Yeah, we've talked about that before a couple of times on the show. But yeah, he's aware. Thank you, Red on the Wire. If this is war crimes, why can't they remove Trump immediately? There are no rules when he doesn't follow any. Yeah, man, I know. I will be speaking to Professor Jeffrey Sachs. I'll be recording with him tomorrow morning, and I'm going to have him break down the economic implications of all this because there's a whole timeline that is predicted right now as to what is going to happen to the global economy and also a possible food shortage. So Professor Sachs, he talks a lot about global politics, but he's also an economist. So I want to get his opinion about this as well. Thank you. Atis says, such a shame. This type of aggression is going to take everyone back to the Stone Ages. Thank you for the super sticker, Piano Man. Thank you for her. Says, one positive is that America will be a decade behind their foreign weapons order fulfillments once the Ukraine and Iran are concluded and we replenish. Thank you, Servant. Professor Marandi for President of the United States and our sister Sabrina for Vice President. Our cabinet will be Danny, Larry, Scott, Gerald. Wait a minute. Danny, Larry, Scott, General McGregor, and the judge. Oh, you got it all mapped out, huh? I would never be a politician. Thank you, Tuxedo. I think the whole pilot recovery story is fake. I haven't seen any pictures or images yet of this pilot being recovered. They said they found him, but I haven't seen anything yet. Thank you for this one, Tuxedo. Are you natty or not? Thank you so much for that. Okie dokie. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, the theme is maybe you didn't know. Let's move on to the next story. A little bit of domestic policy here. We're going to talk about this budget proposal that Donald Trump has and the cuts that he wants to make. Now, first and foremost, I want you to pay close attention to what Donald Trump says in this video, because he admits something publicly that many of us on the left have been saying for quite a long time. And he finally says it out in the open.
Because the United States can't take care of daycare. That has to be up to a state. We can't take care of daycare. We're a big country. We have 50 states. We have all these other people. We're fighting wars. We can't take care of daycare. You got to let a state take care of daycare, and they should pay for it, too. They should pay. They have to raise their taxes, but they should pay for it. And we could lower our taxes a little bit to them to make up, but it's not possible for us to take care of daycare. Medicaid, Medicare, all these individual things, they can do it on a state basis. You can't do it on a federal. We have to take care of one thing, military protection.
Well. Now that's important, and somebody can clip this, hold on to that, because he just said the quiet part out loud. The reason why they don't want to take care of childcare, they don't want to take care of healthcare, is because they need money for the military budget. They need that money for defense. Didn't I tell you? The defense budget is over $860 billion. Might be trillion now. I have to double check. That's why I keep saying, cut the defense budget, help the people. Cut the defense budget, fix the infrastructure. We have bridges in this country falling apart. I drive over them. I'm sure you do too. So there it is, folks. That's why. It has nothing to do with communism. It has nothing to do with socialism. It's because they want that money for wars. So Tupac was right when he said they got money for war, but they can't feed the poor. Right? This is important because Donald Trump is announcing budget cuts, and I do want to show you who is going to be impacted. Trump budget seeks $1.5 trillion in defense spending alongside domestic program cuts. So here we go again. He wants more money for defense, which means that they are going to cut from domestic programs. This is what they want to do. Someone in the chat already said it. Someone said, stop paying your taxes. You know, I've seen this trending online, and I'm wondering, maybe this might be the right way to go. Because I'm honestly starting to wonder what would happen if everyone just decided not to pay their taxes. People say, oh, they would throw all of us in jail. Really? All of us? So let's get into these budget cuts that are coming up. And look at Donald Trump here. He's just kind of, you know, I swear to God, I wonder what the history books are going to say about him. President Trump has proposed boosting defense spending for $1.5 trillion in his 2027 budget. 2027 budget. That means he wants more wars. Now, this is the guy that said that he was the peace candidate, right? That he was not going to start any new wars. Obviously, he's already done that. But what this is telling you is that he wants to continue these wars. That's why he wants more money. The largest such request in decades. The sizable increase for the Pentagon, some 44%, had been telegraphed by the Republican president even before the U.S.-led war against Iran. The president's plan would also reduce spending on non-defense programs by 10%. Here's this comment here from Director Russell Vaught. President Trump promised to reinvest in America's national security infrastructure to make sure our nation is safe in a dangerous world. Actually, what Donald Trump promised when he was running for president was that he was going to get the economy back on track. He said that Joe Biden messed everything up and that he was going to get it all right back on track. That's what he promised. He also promised that he wasn't going to create any new wars. He said that he was going to end, you know, the conflict in Gaza. And he still, of course, wouldn't call it genocide. But he said he was going to put a stop to all that. Israel just bombed Gaza again the other day. So these were his words. It goes on here and it says the president's annual budget is considered a reflection of the administration's values and does not carry the force of law. The massive document typically highlights an administration's priorities, but Congress, which handles federal spending issues, is free to reject it and often does. Yeah, let's see if they do that, because Hakeem Jeffries has been kind of going along with some of the things that Donald Trump wants. Let me show you what they're calling for here. Among the priorities, the White House called for supporting Trump's administration, immigration enforcement, and deportation operations by eliminating aspects of a refugee resettlement aid program, maintaining immigrations and custom enforcement funds at current year levels, and drawing on last year's increases for the Department of Homeland Security funds. So I'm going to tell you guys something real quick, right? You know what's interesting about this? When you look at the numbers, this is how you catch them with their bullshit. When you look at the numbers, Donald Trump right now still has not even deported as many people as Biden did or Obama did. What Donald Trump does is he has a lot of outrage, right? So there's been controversial actions with ICE from Donald Trump, but he still has not deported as many people. There has been no mass deportation under Donald Trump. Look up the numbers. Let's continue on. This is how they really fool people, man. A 13% increase in funding for the Department of Justice to focus on violent criminals and the president's promise to stop what the White House calls migrant crime. So you mean the violent criminals that are mentioned in the Epstein files, which they didn't go after? You see what I mean? Look who they're going after. They're going after the low-hanging fruit, the working class. They're not trying to go after the people who really are the mob bosses and shit. A $10 billion fund for the National Park Service for construction and beautification projects in Washington, D.C. 10 billion, guys. 10 billion. A $481 million increase in funding to enhance aviation safety and support on air traffic controller hiring surge. This drives me crazy. $10 billion you want to go to beautification. Wow. The money is so cuts to green energy, housing, and health programs. Cancels more than $15 billion from the Biden era bipartisan infrastructure law, including funds for renewable energy projects, and cuts the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, so NOAA grants. So one of the things here, the $15 billion to cut from the infrastructure. So remember what I was telling you before? Like, I have many criticisms against Biden as well. But the problem is the infrastructure in this country is shit. I even showed you back then, if you look at the American Society of Civil Engineers report, they grade us every year. The measure that was proposed by the Biden administration, according to the American Society of Civil Engineers, was not even enough. That wasn't even enough just to maintain. That's why we have such a bad grade. It's wild where they want the money to go. 19% cut from Department of Agriculture, ending certain university grants, 13% cut from Department of Housing and Urban Development. Here we go. Everybody always takes money from housing. This is what I'm telling you. 12% decrease in health and human services, includes cuts to a low-income heating assistance program. So do you see who he wants to take the money from and what he wants to give the money to? More money to go towards the wars. And he wants to fund that by taking money from some of the programs that we have here in the United States. Why are we taking money from housing? Why are we trying to take money from healthcare? Like, you go to any of these other countries, and this is insane when you tell them these things. As much as this administration and others have criticized Cuba, people in Cuba have universal health care. People in Cuba also have a longer life expectancy than we do right here in the United States. I wonder what the difference could be. So that's what it is, guys. And they got you mad at your friends. They got you mad at your coworkers. They got you mad at your neighbors, telling you that person's a commie, that person's a radical, that person's a this. But the reality is they want more money for war. That's why they don't want to give you anything, nothing. And they want to take what they've already implemented. It's wild. Supporters and detractors. The Republican chairman of the House and Senate Armed Services Committee applauded Trump's request for defense spending. Of course they do. Saying the money would ensure the country's military remains the most advanced in the world while confronting growing threats from China, Russia, Iran, and others. The growing threat is us. None of these countries came to attack America. America is attacking those countries or planning to in the future. Who started attacking Iran? The U.S. and Israel did. Russia been on their list for quite a minute. They coming for Russia one day. They're coming for China one day. It's so obvious. But if you go to some of these other countries and you look at the infrastructure that they have and you look at what we have and you look at that, they're not perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect country. But you look at how everybody in their country has health care. It makes you wonder, what in the hell? Some of us have lived overseas. I've lived overseas. I've seen the difference. So they decided to take care of their community. They decided to take care of the community and not fight all these damn wars. That's why their money is allocated differently. Now I want to show you this. We're going to compare what Donald Trump said in 2024 to what he's saying now in 2026. Just about childcare. So again, just to show you, if you think that you're crazy or you're losing your mind, you're not.
If you win in November, can you commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable? And if so, what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that. Childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people. but we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first. We can't take care.
We were going to take care of our country first. So those were his words in 2024.
Of daycare. We're a big country. We have 50 states. We have all these other people. We're fighting wars. We can't take care of daycare. You got to let a state take care of daycare, and they should pay for it too. They should pay. They have to raise their taxes, but they should pay for it. And we could lower our taxes a little bit to them to make up. But it's not possible for us to take care of daycare, Medicaid, Medicare, all these individual things. They can do it on a state basis. You can't do it on a federal. We have to take care of one thing, military protection. We have to guard the country.
Yeah, so you're not imagining things. You're not the one going crazy. But maybe you didn't know. Maybe you didn't see what he said in 2024 about this. Video lives on. So you can always go back and compare. People talk a big game when they're running for office. And then the moment that they're in, it's just like, whatever. But you know what? The solution to this is us. The solution to this is us, the people. We're the ones that come together, we organize, and we take care of each other. And that's the way it used to be. Some of you watching, you may remember, if you were born, if you're, a boomer like my parents, or maybe you're from the silent generation, you might remember a time when people actually worked together as a community. You might remember a time when maybe you didn't have to have daycare because you guys were close knit like that in the community, and there were people in your neighborhood that would watch the kids for you. That's the type of community that my parents grew up in. My parents didn't go to daycares. I'm trying to figure out, for those of you who are older, when did daycare become a thing? My parents didn't go to daycare. My grandparents didn't go to daycare. Family and community looked out for each other. But I think along the way, we've become a lot more isolated because, nowadays, a lot of people don't know who their next door neighbor is. We've gone from spending so much time outside and building community to just being on our phones. A lot of that was disrupted with social media and screens. I've seen people say this about their kids as well. Just give them a device. That way they'll be quiet and sit still. I didn't have a device until Nintendo came out. Right? So maybe that has something to do with it. But we didn't always have these things. And the community looked out for each other. And then if you're wondering why Donald Trump's approval rating is what it is, I want to show you. Look at this.
At this point in term number 2.
Yeah, a big difference there in Republicans who are running for office in a few months watching this with a lot of trepidation. Let's talk about independents, which has been this group which really has just been eye-popping the last few months.
Eye-popping indeed. This number, if there's one big number from this, is that Donald Trump now has the worst net approval rating among independents of any president ever at this point in term 2. He is worse than Richard Nixon, who would be going adios amigos in a few months back in 1974 in term 2. Look at this, minus 45 points, worse than George W. Bush at this point in term 2. The Iraq War was weighing him down at minus 37, and worse than Richard Nixon when, of course, there were all those impeachment hearings back in 1974 at minus 36 points. He's nearly 10 points worse among independents on his net approval rating at this point in term 2, Donald Trump is, than Richard Nixon.
This man is really excited about his job if you've never seen him before, but this is bad. This is bad. And listen, let me tell you something I've noticed. I noticed some people have been trying to give Donald Trump a pass. They're like, oh, yeah, that's his approval rating, but whatever. Things were bad under Biden, too. And yeah, economically, things were bad under Biden as well. The point is, the next guy coming in said that he would make it better. The next guy coming in said that he was going to fix it. That's the point. So I have noticed that some people they're trying to be a little bit nicer, and they're a little bit more lenient on Trump than they were on Biden. This ain't that show. This is not that show. Because the reality is, when you run on that type of message, you should fulfill those promises.
My goodness gracious.
Yeah, height of Watergate, we're comparing it to here.
Yeah.
All right, we'll talk about possible collateral damage. The president can't run again despite musings there. But what impact might this be having on, say, others close to him?
Others close to him. The Vice President of the United States, chance that J.D. Vance is a 2028 Republican nominee. 6 months ago, he was at a 53% chance. Down he goes. He goes down a 37% chance, according to the Kalshi prediction market. This is tied for his all-time low, J.D. Vance.
So do you guys see how Donald Trump is also dragging down J.D. Vance? Mr. Couch Guy, it is not looking good for Couch Man either. And so that is, you're an extension of the president when you're the vice president. So people looking at you kind of like, yeah, this is bad. This is crazy, man, right? But that's why I say, when it comes to what we can do about these types of things, we really have to look within our community once again. We got to get back to that place. And you know what that means? That means that you may have to get out of your comfort zone. That means that you may have to put down your phone a couple of times. I don't know. I'm just saying. That means that you may have to recreate or establish community, because I'm here to tell you, I'm going to have this conversation with Jeffrey Sachs tomorrow. And I want to hear what he's going to say about the economic impact of what's happening with Iran. People are already predicting that we may have a food shortage because of this. Did you guys know that in Colorado, there's a meat packer strike right now? So we're talking about could be shortages that, like, when shit hits the fan, I think a lot of us learned during the pandemic, you can only rely on each other. Because I don't know how it was in your state, but in Massachusetts, by the time those PPE loans came around for some of these small business owners, it was already too late. That's why a lot of those businesses, even in the tourist area in Boston, closed down. That's why I say we're going to have to rely on each other. And honestly, I feel like they want this to happen. I feel like the powers that be, the billionaire class, I feel like they want it to happen. And you say, why would they want that to happen, Sabby? Because I think they want population control. No, that's not a conspiracy thing. I think, and I've felt this way for quite some time, that they want population control. It really is the haves and the have-nots. It's us versus them. And don't let anybody tell you anything different. It is us versus them. If you got money, if you're part of the billionaire class, you're going to be okay. It's the rest of us that are not going to be okay. And none of these politicians are going to help you. None of them. I don't care if you think, I don't care who you stand for. None of these people. Donald Trump is not going to help you. J.D. Vance ain't going to help you. AOC not going to help you. The Obamas are not going to help you. At the end of the day, when shit hit the fan, class meets class. And all those people in the billionaire class are going to look out for each other, regardless of what side the political aisle they're on. They don't give a damn. They protect each other and they protect the status quo. We're the ones that are going to have the problem. So it is not looking good for Donald Trump. Not looking good. And I hope more people are waking up to, it's a class war, man. It's a class war. Let's get to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. Thank you so much for the super sticker, Marandi. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Trump needs to learn MMT. There you go. Thank you, Tuxedo. If Israel gets control of the strait, we are cooked. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, though. I don't think it is. Thank you, Servant. Government has been compromised by small hat. I hope someone emerges that we could put in office that will put an oppression around the world century, supposed to be the leader of the free war. Thank you, Megan. I was listening to Colonel McGregor recently, and he called people from Pakistan Pakis. When I was young, that was considered a racial slur. Has that changed? I was told by people from Pakistan not to call them that. So hopefully Colonel McGregor can not call them that. I mean, I don't know. He's older, and sometimes I don't know. Thank you, Red on the Wire. Stop paying taxes, everyone. If you stop paying rent and put it in escrow, your landlord all of a sudden has your attention, right? Let's do it. Thank you, Kevin. Healthcare is a factor for sure, but also people in other countries generally don't put the same kind of processed food crap in their bodies. Yeah, and even if you look at their processed food, it doesn't tend to have as many ingredients as ours. Thank you, all my hoes demonetized. That name. We the people will change this. Yeah, it's going to come down to us, guys. Thank you for says America is doomed. The uniparty votes for every Department of War increase. I am going to move to the mountains of Ethiopia and leave this all behind. Going to Africa, huh? Lala said, I'm a boomer. So there was never a need when I grew up. I started seeing daycare come up in the 80s after the hostile takeover of companies and two people having to keep up with the Jones. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I always wondered, like, when did daycares become a thing? Thank you, Tuxedo. To be fair to Trump, look what he did to Charlie Kirk. Oh, boy. Thank you, Snowy. They've been planning depopulation for decades. Food toxins, pharma, LBJ weather manipulation, riots, wars, fires, and floods. Yeah, we just covered the LBJ one recently. Thank you, Ray. Trump calls the media fake news, then calls the fake news to spread his lies. Yeah, class war. Thanks, Kenman. I don't believe that McGregor actually said that. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you, Justice by Karma. The solution to this is us, the people, sabrinasalvati, 100%, hashtag American People Unity. Thank you. Let's get that comment on Rumble and we'll keep it moving and grooving. Yeah. Thank you, Angry, for the Rumble rant. Sabby, a long time ago, you talked with Steve Grumbine about MMT. Are there plans to talk to him again? He's learned more since you last talked. You know what? I should reach back out to him. Now would be a good time to have that conversation considering what we're going through. And thank you for this one. Sabby, can you invite on Alexander from the Liberation News Network to discuss reformism, Trotskyism, the Green Party, and how they are different from communism? I can look into that. I've become more hesitant to say, yes, I will just go try to bring someone on because sometimes things ain't what they say they are. And thank you for this one. On that note, I've noticed arguments saying we need numbers to increase solidarity. But the problem is if the unifying goal isn't the dictatorship of the proletariat, not much will change. It's interesting. All right, ladies and gents, if you haven't had a chance to do so, do me a solid and smash that like. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. Now's time to get to a story that maybe you did not know. I haven't seen too many people cover this just yet, so it might be new to some of you. What if I told you that Argentina is currently trying to create a mini Israel in Argentina? Check it out. Shout out to Gen X Girl here. A leaked report. Argentina to accept 300,000 Israelis and create a mini state. A confidential report from Argentina Secretary of Strategic Coordination and Assistance in Emergencies has been leaked to the press outlining a plan to receive 300,000 Israelis, establish a mini country for Israelis in the burned parts of Patagonia called Private Neighborhood Jose, Prophet of Israel. Now, we're going to go back to those fires that happened in Argentina, but I want you to hear this right here, ladies and gents. I'm going to have to read it along the way here. So it says up to 300,000 Israeli refugees in Argentina. Listen.
Se ha filtrado a la prensa el informe confidencial catalogado bajo el expediente número MS26. El documento coordina la preparación de un plan preventivo.
So it's a leaked document that coordinates the preparation of a preventative plan
para acoger hasta 300,000 refugiados
to take in 300,000 Israeli refugees in Argentina.
Israelíes en Argentina. Este llamado plan preventivo nace como respuesta directa a la guerra impulsada por Estados Unidos e Israel.
This was made about due to a direct response with the wars in the Middle East
contra la República Islámica de Irán
against Iran.
El documento arroja un sesgo alarmante. El operativo humanitario y la logística estatal están diseñados única y exclusivamente para acoger hasta 300.000 ciudadanos del Estado de Israel.
It is designed only to take in those from the state of Israel.
A pesar de que la guerra afecta a toda la región, el plan del gobierno omite por completo ofrecer refugio a poblaciones iraníes.
It will not provide shelter to the Syrian populations. Everyone check this out now.
Otras víctimas civiles del conflicto.
Or other civilians that are victims of the conflict, focusing on all the resources of the Argentinian state.
Buscando todos los recursos del Estado argentino en una sola nacionalidad, Israel. Conocidos los detalles del informe, vemos que no se trata, por tanto, de un plan humanitario, sino de subordinarse a las necesidades del Estado de Israel. Lamentablemente, hay más factores preocupantes para añadir a la situación.
There are more factors to the situation. So you guys see what's happening here? So nobody else, like, of course, they're not going to take in people from Gaza. They're not going to take in like Palestinians from the West Bank or anything like that. This is just for Israel.
Se ha filtrado a los medios documentación que revela la existencia de un proyecto urbanístico aprobado por el Ministerio de Obras
The project of urbanization approved by Argentine Ministry of Public
Públicas
Works
argentino para crear lo que los argentinos llaman un country, una urbanización privada en la Patagonia.
Yeah, for Argentina to create like this mini state, a country, a private housing development in Patagonia. Oh, it's all coming back.
En tierras quemadas por el fuego, llamado barrio
In the lands that were burned by the fire, called Private Neighborhood of Joshua, Prophet of Israel.
privado Josué, profeta de Israel. Este barrio privado va a tener nada menos que 100.000 hectáreas.
The private neighborhood will have roughly about 100,000 acres.
100.000 hectáreas. Esto es 4 veces la superficie de Gaza.
4 times the surface of Gaza. So this is what I was trying to get people. All right, now we got to go back in time. We have to go back to those fires that were set in Argentina, right? Because we've talked about this before, this idea of land theft after disaster. It's happened here in the United States. It happens in other countries as well. Sometimes here in the U.S., it happens after hurricanes, earthquakes, also fires. We talked about the fires not too long ago in California, where developers and other people will come in and they'll see that as an opportunity to buy that land because it's destroyed, it's relatively cheap, and they'll build what they want on it at that point in time. So essentially, this is what's happening in Argentina. We all know that Milei is very close to Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, this was warned back then. I want to show you this video that was shared back in January of 2026. They were trying to tell people what was coming.
So if you guys don't know what's happening in Argentina right now, they're basically trying to make it the new Israel. And anytime somebody speaks up about it, the president of Argentina calls them anti-Semitic. Here's what's going on. There are fires all around Argentina right now. People are speculating that Israeli tourists are starting the fires in order to purchase the land at cheap prices. If you're wondering how can this even be possible, here's the thing. People believe Argentina's president Javier Milei is in cahoots because he repealed a law that used to ban the sale of land immediately after a fire. It's important to have laws like this in places like Patagonia because the land is so beautiful, and if somebody knew that they could just set the place on fire and then they could get it for 10x off, there's going to be some psychos that might consider doing that. Now, guess what? It doesn't just stop there. Javier Milei then issued an executive order at the end of 2023 that repealed a law limiting the foreign ownership of rural land. This means that now there is no limit for how much land foreigners can purchase in Argentina. So now when you can purchase land immediately after a fire at such a cheap price, and you opened up the market to foreigners, and you already have Israelis coming in droves, don't you feel like that could be a recipe for disaster? And the thing is, Argentina's president is so obsessed with Israel, he has no problem selling what I believe is one of the most beautiful places on earth, Patagonia, Argentina, truly top 5 most beautiful places on earth, giving it away to Israelis, and the Argentine people don't have a say in the matter, really? So I've been watching some of the domestic news in Argentina right now, and the shit that these people are going through facing the fires, it's horrible. There's this video of this lady going viral, and she's crying, and she says, I know what's going on, they're burning all of Patagonia, and they're selling the land to the Israelis.
Let me pause here. See, guys, this is what I was saying before. Sometimes a lot of these things, when we talk about these fires, yeah, sometimes it's a natural disaster. And sometimes these fires are set. Sometimes these fires are set because people want the land. Developers want the land. Now, remember when Donald Trump gave all that money to Milei, billions of dollars to Milei to help him and help his country, get them out of their financial woes? You think he just gave him that money just because he wanted to be nice and kind? Hell no. Hell no. There's always something attached to that money, especially billions of dollars. Now it's all fallen into place. Listen to what this woman said here. That they were trying to sell Patagonia to Israel. See? She said Israelis were all over the place trying to buy land.
Another video of this guy saying the same thing. We're no longer surprised that they're setting Patagonia on fire for us. We know it's for a real estate interest. They don't even hide it anymore. They do it right in front of our face because they have power on their side. Why do you think the government sent no aid at all? The entire country has already realized it. Patagonia is one of the most beautiful places on the planet, and it's being destroyed. Potentially for big money interests to purchase the land and then make what, like a colony of Israel? What's going on here?
So that is Wali Rashid. I should see if I can reach out to Wali Rashid. But he was warning people about this back in January of this year. And now I want to show you, because some people may be wondering, why would they go that route? I just want to show you again the extension of it. Now, Soros here shared this information in March of this year. So we're going through the timeline. Israeli urban planning project in the burned area of Patagonia. They will build a private neighborhood with Argentine public money. The following are planned: 12 primary schools, 8 secondary schools, 3 technical institutes, 2 universities, centers for studies on history and culture of Israel. Oh my God. Technology academies. This doesn't seem to be the infrastructure that a private neighborhood needs. It looks more like a town. What I tell you. So you see what's happening there? Now, if you're wondering, like, why in the hell would Argentina do this with Israel after Israel has been committing genocide? Why would they go out of their way to help them out? And this is where we have to go back a little bit through the history of Argentina. We have to remember who fled to Argentina after World War II. Argentina greatly accepted them right on in. So let's go ahead and bring in, going back to the history. This matters. This is important. Why Argentina accepted Nazi war criminals after World War II. This is showing you that Argentina has done this before, where they bring in and accept war criminals. So if we go back through the history here, just a little bit of the tidbit. After World War II, thousands of Nazis and wartime collaborators from France, Croatia, Belgium, and other parts of Europe were looking for a new home, preferably as far away from the Nuremberg trials as possible. Argentina welcomed thousands of them. Juan Domingo Perón's regime went to great lengths to get them there, sending agents to Europe to ease their passage, providing travel documents, and in many cases, covering expenses. Went all out of their way to get them there, even covered many of their expenses. Even those accused of the most heinous crimes, such as Ante Pavlovic and Dr. Joseph Mengele and Adolf Eichmann, who was Adolf Hitler's architect of the Holocaust, were welcomed with open arms. And it begs to question, why on earth would Argentina want these men? So something else I want to just highlight here. During World War II, Argentina clearly favored the Axis because of close cultural ties with Germany, Spain, and Italy. This is not surprising, as most Argentines were of Spanish, Italian, or German descent. Nazi Germany nurtured this sympathy, promising important trade concessions after the war. Argentina was full of Nazi spies, and Argentine officers and diplomats held important positions in Axis Europe. Perón's government was a big fan of the fascist trappings of Nazi Germany, spiffy uniforms, parades, rallies, and vicious anti-Semitism. So you guys see this, right? Many influential Argentines, including wealthy businessmen and members of the government, were openly supportive of the Axis cause, none more so than Perón himself, who had served in the military attached to Benito Mussolini's Italian army in the late 1930s. So what we are seeing here is something that has been done before. Argentina has let war criminals come in before, and not only did they not just let them in, but they helped get them there, helping them even financially, brought them into Argentina. So when you see this news that Argentina is trying to welcome over 300,000 Israelis to come in and basically create this little mini Israel in Argentina on the land of the fire, where the fires burned in Patagonia, you just got to go back and look through history a little bit here. Why else is this important? Because when you listen to the fact that a lot of the Nazis fled to Argentina, and you look at the population, I'm going to show you two different clips. People also ask, what happened to the Afro-Argentinians? I'm going to show you what happened to them, because Argentina also practiced, and still to this day is known for believing in this type of, not everybody, but known for supporting this type of ethno-supremacy. And I'm going to show you an example of that. The first one is from Bad Empanada's show. What happened to the Black Argentines? Listen to this.
In the early 19th century, they were around 30% of the total, but today they're only around 0.4%. So what happened? Well, after Argentina became independent and slowly sort of united, it very slowly and gradually abolished slavery. Large parts of the country's elite were huge racists who saw the black population as some sort of problem that had to be solved. But they didn't quite go about it in the really on-the-nose way that the myths tend to emphasize. First, let's talk about those myths. Historian George Reed Andrews showed that there is no evidence that black Argentine soldiers died disproportionately in the Paraguayan War, and that they were not hit any harder by epidemics than the rest of the population. So, both totally wrong. Additionally, while Argentine leaders did no doubt say some very deplorable things about their black countrymen, the sometimes purported mass killings and extermination campaigns, as claimed in certain articles that are high in the Google search results for the topic, are not a thing that actually happened. Except to indigenous people, but that's a separate issue. So what did happen? Well, looking at census data from Buenos Aires, which was by far the most populous part of the country and still is, the black population there peaked at 14,000, which already wasn't that much. 50 years.
Pause. So we're going to show you what happened between this time period, right? So he's right. It peaked at over 14,000 in 1836, 1838. But if you'll notice, in 1887, it was down to over 8,000. So listen to this.
Years later, this had declined to 8,000, while the white population had multiplied by 10. This was due to two things. First, as the numbers may indicate, the government fostered the migration of poor white European immigrants, partly because they just wanted lots of immigrants, and partly because they were following the ideology called blanqueamiento. The idea, very common across Latin America at the time, that it was desirable to whiten the population. So this mass immigration led to the relative importance of the black community quickly dwindling just due to numbers. That immigration also resulted in a lot of mingling between the black and white populations. And so, black people married white people, they had mixed race kids, etc. But that doesn't mean that black people were absorbed or anything like that. Rather, the government, as part of the Blanqueamiento campaign, actually started to define mixed race people as not black. For example, they invented the category trigueño, in which lighter-skinned, often mixed-race African descendants and dark-skinned Europeans would both be placed into together, in a clear effort to obfuscate the differences between them. So then the government and people could point to these official statistics and be like, hey look, there's no black people in Argentina, even though there obviously were. And that created the idea that there are no black people in Argentina, which only became more entrenched as even more white immigrants flooded the country in the 20th century.
So do you guys see? This is one of the things that happened that changed that. They welcomed and brought in a European immigrants to come to Argentina. They did have this goal of wanting to basically, I guess, cleanse the country of Argentina. They wanted more of an ethno state. Sounds similar to what you see with Israel as well. That's also why they openly were willing to welcome the Nazis to come right in. But there's more. I want to show you something else as well. And now I'm telling you this because it seems like they're trying to do this all over again with creating this mini Israel in Patagonia. Historyville here also talks about what happened during the independence war in Argentina. Listen to this.
For almost a decade, the Argentine War of Independence, which started in 1810, was fought, and in 1816, Argentina gained its independence from Spain. It is well within the realm of possibilities that black men who were at the time still slaves would have been forced into the battlefront and became the greater casualty. Notable among these slave soldiers was Maria Remedios de Val, who fought in the Argentine Independence War along with her husband and sons. Originally, one of the popular answers as to how blacks were erased from Argentine history is the idea that these 18th century wars claimed the lives of many black men who represented the larger part of the black population.
So that part right there is significant. If it claimed the lives of a lot of black men, then obviously that's going to make the numbers decrease as well. But that was the men, not the women. Now, let me fast forward to the other part there where she talks about what happened to the women so that people can understand this part as well. This is the gender difference at that point in time after that war.
Resulting from the loss of black lives in the wars, the number of black men who represented the larger part of the black population was greatly reduced. Accordingly, women became the larger part, and as a result, what was once a fairly balanced ratio of women to men had become disproportionate. This, amongst other things, facilitated the rise of interracial marriages in Argentina. Since the number of black men was on the decrease, black women were left with two choices: get married to Argentine men or contest for the few African men who were left. Some chose, if that would be considered a choice, the latter. What is strange are the conclusions that were drawn from this choice. Some have concluded that blacks wanted a place where they belonged. So, after the abolishment of slavery, many of them migrated from Argentina to nearby countries with more predominant acceptance of black people, such as Brazil. Apparently, this conclusion was arrived at because some families were in fact purely black.
So that's important for people to understand, right? Because when we talk about people aren't shocked if you say Afro-Brazilians, right? Like it's kind of known for the most part. But what happened back then in Argentina, it looks like they're trying to make this still a thing. Where they're trying to bring in and create this mini state for Israel in Argentina today. So we're talking about a country where when people say, I can't believe Argentina would do that, we're talking about a country that openly allowed Nazis to come in, funded their way to get there after it was known what they did, after the crimes were known, and said, come on into Argentina. This is why I think sometimes that, it's important that we look back at history. So with this particular story here, hopefully, if you didn't know something, maybe you know now. But this one is this is a biggie because people brought this up before about Argentina. So pay close attention, guys. There's a lot of moving pieces that are happening. There's a reason why Benjamin Netanyahu has been meeting with Milei as much as he has. And then we also have to pay attention to these quote unquote disaster areas that seem to pop up out of nowhere. Like I said, yes, sometimes there are natural disasters and sometimes people start those fires. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. Erica, we can go to part 2 of Type B and C. Thank you. Thank you so much for the super sticker, Marcarl Citano. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Thank you, Farah, for the super chat. Says Argentina is 97% glow in the dark white. Thank you, Veronica. When Tupac said they got money for wars, but they can't feed the poor, he meant that. Yeah. Thank you, Kenman. Mile's sideburns larger than his brain. Frau says, what is Nakba in Argentinian? I don't know. Good question. Thank you, Megan. I found the leak where Colonel McGregor used the slur. For those who don't believe me, I can send it to you via the chat. Thank you, Taran, for the super sticker. Thank you, Miss Sparkle. This is why I root against Argentina in soccer. And thank you for this one, Miss Sparkles. Sabby, they're trying to do this in Kenya too. Yes, I still have to bring on someone from Kenya to talk about that, because someone contacted me about that. Yep. And thank you to Roger Meadows, who has been a member for 33 months. OMG, where's you know who? Oh my gosh. Okay, ladies and gents, here's another thing that you may not have known is going on, right? When it comes to deed theft, we have people in the US who are getting their homes stolen from them via predatory means, and it's called deed theft. Now, New York City is one of the more popular places where this has been happening, and it's getting a lot of attention now, like on the rise. And I think you guys need to see this. I'm going to take you through the timeline again. This was a couple of months ago when they mentioned this here. And then I'm going to take you to the more present day, because this fight is still ongoing. Here we go here. Black homeowners in Brooklyn are fighting what they call ongoing deed theft. Check it out.
Black homeowners in Brooklyn are fighting what they call ongoing deed theft. They say residents are losing their homes and they're not getting justice. Hannah Klieger breaks down their message and how city and state prosecutors are responding.
Activists gathered outside the Brooklyn District Attorney's office this afternoon.
People are left homeless, hopeless, and victimized.
Their frustration echoed in their voices as this lawyer says he's had dozens of alleged victims coming to him for help.
You come to the DA's office because you believe it's a crime. And what the DA's office tells you is go to the Supreme Court and file a civil action.
Part of their message.
I just have to pause there for a second, because that's so important what he just said there. Part of the reason why it's hard to fight back against these types of things, especially if you don't have the money to have an attorney, is that you get the runaround. You go to one office, they tell you to go to another one. You go to that office, that city office, and they tell you to go back to the one that you just came from. You go back to the one that you just came from, and they tell you, no, you have to go there. And so there's this runaround that happens throughout the system. And so unfortunately, what can happen is people get tired of running around so much that they just give up. And that's kind of what they want you to do. They don't really want to solve this. They don't really want to deal with it. This has been going on for a long time, but it's been getting more attention recently.
Is a cycle of what they call selective prosecution. Certain cases and serial scammers get a lot of attention, but other cases don't even make it into the courtroom.
They are first victimized by cunning crooks, and then victimized again by the legal and court system that is supposed to, at the very least, listen to their cries for help.
DA Eric Gonzalez's office issued a statement that reads they have a robust and active deed fraud unit that secured 31 indictments since 2017.
But it doesn't stop the deed theft. So yeah, this is another thing. That's why I wanted you guys to see this. Yeah, they've been able to get indictments, but it's not stopping it from happening, and people still lose their home.
All leading to convictions. Among those, the recent conviction of a man named Sanford Solney, who the courts determined stole the deeds to 11 residential properties. The homes were all returned to their owners.
But activists point to cases like these to express their dissatisfaction, saying Mr. Solney had many more victims, and there are many more people engaging in this kind of illegal behavior.
They cannot do anything because of statute of limitations.
The Office of New York Attorney General Letitia James says she has led an effort to pass stronger anti-deed theft laws that give prosecutors more power to protect victims by establishing deed theft as a crime and amending the statute of limitations for these cases.
Hannah, please explain why these cases are so hard to bring to court.
Among many things, activists say the burden of proof is high, and sometimes the paperwork can technically be in order, even if it was signed under manipulative or coercive circumstances. So the intent of fraud can be difficult to prove. And the other argument is there are questions about whether these cases should be tried in criminal or civil court, which, as we know, can get very expensive for homeowners facing financial challenges.
Right. So what it comes down to is that if you don't have the money, it's going to be hard for you to resolve this situation. That's why I say, like, the system is set up in such a way that it benefits people who have money. That's the reality. What I would say to anyone watching is don't sign anything without a lawyer. Don't sign anything present. And a lot of times they will prey on the elderly too. This reminds me of what happened during the subprime mortgage crisis here in the United States, where a lot of these scammers, these so-called loan companies or whatever, they targeted elders. In particular, they targeted a lot of Black elders who may not have understood all the language in the paperwork that they were reading and believed what was told to their face and signed on the dotted line. There were also cases where people's signature was forged in the subprime mortgage cases. So I would say part of the reason why we have this issue here with the deed theft there in New York City and other places as well is because there wasn't really any accountability after the subprime mortgage crisis. Let's all remember Barack Obama decided to bail out Wall Street instead of the American people, the people whose homes were stolen from them. So if you show people that the lenders and the banks can just get off and do whatever the hell they want to do, why would they stop doing it? Why would people stop having these scams? So no action has consequence. Now I want to show you here as well, because you'll also see here, this one was more recent. This video here, it's more residents in New York complaining about deed theft and their homes being stolen. But you're also going to see Osei, who had announced he was going to run against Hakeem Jeffries. And unfortunately, DSA would not back his race. So he decided not to run at all. But I don't see Hakeem Jeffries even talking about this issue. You see the problem? So listen to this.
Deed theft, where homeowners are essentially tricked out of their properties, has been a pervasive problem for a few years now. And now this group is rallying outside the governor's office, demanding that she do something about it.
My father and I worked really hard. We scraped and we saved and we purchased our home legally and legitimately.
Rachel Cyprian was shaking mad as she spoke with us outside the governor's office about the devastating impact of her 15-year fight to reclaim ownership of her Brooklyn home following.
So you hear that? 15 years. This is why a lot of people just give up.
Deed theft.
It leads to homelessness. It leads to depression. It leads to all sorts of failures. Here we are, Black people, in this country now for over 400 years, and we're constantly starting from square one.
Deed theft is when a property's title is transferred away from the rightful owner, generally due to deceptive or predatory tactics. Frequently, the targets are seniors and communities of color.
What do we want? And when do we want it? Now!
So this is Osei, the guy who was going to run against Hakeem Jeffries. He announced that he was going to, and DSA said, no, don't run against him. There's this whole thing about how you should not challenge Hakeem Jeffries, which is bullshit. Hakeem Jeffries is still letting a lot of Donald Trump shit slide in Congress. But Osei here, as you'll see, was one of the people that was very active with this, very much involved. And you don't see Hakeem Jeffries out there showing up for the people. Right? So it just, this is why I don't belong to political parties, guys.
Now, Brooklyn City Councilman Osei is pressing the governor to put a moratorium on evictions where there's a deed theft case pending or being investigated.
We are pleading to the governor, to the head of the state, to do right by all of us, to do right by Black New Yorkers, and to do your job.
During the moratorium, Osei and other elected leaders are demanding legislative fixes, like more support for homeowners in eviction court, special investigative units inside district attorneys' offices, a public database of shell companies associated with deed theft, and more. In response, a spokeswoman for the governor's office did not mention an immediate moratorium, but said the governor has taken a number of steps to push back against deed theft. Quote, "No New Yorker should be cheated cheated out of the opportunity to keep their home, which is why Governor Hochul has proposed $40 million in her state budget for the Homeowner Protection Program, and why she has led the way in enacting strong protections to empower homeowners and crack down on illegal deed theft.
But the problem is it's still happening. Like that's the thing, guys. Like all of the, okay, that's nice, but why is it still happening? Why are people still being, scammed out of their homes?
But advocates say they will press on for more reform and that immediate moratorium.
Moratorium now! Moratorium now! Governor Hochul, it is now at your door. Yes. Right. What are you going to do to keep black families in their home? That's it. That's all I want to hear about.
Between 2014 and 2023, there have been roughly 3,500 complaints of deed theft in New York City alone. So we will continue following these proposals and continue to follow up with the governor's office and councilman's office as this moves forward. In Midtown, Henry Rossoff, Pixel.
Now, this is not something that you can blame the Republicans for. This is Democrat leadership. I mean, when it comes to the housing issue, this is a problem all across the board. But the fact that this has been happening for as long as it has, and it continues to happen, come on, man. The rules are designed in such a way that allow it to happen. For me, it's not just about going after the people who are, I consider this to be fraud, scam, who are doing this. It's also about changing that system in place that allows it to happen in the first place. And like I said, the fact that Obama did not hold the banks and these lending companies accountable during the 2008 housing crisis, I would say that kind of just opens the door for something like this. Because if you know that you're not going to be held accountable, then it's just like the banks are like, whatever, we can do what we want to do. But stealing people's homes, it's just like someone mentioned it in the chat. They said, kind of reminds me of the West Bank. Everybody's starting to make the connection between geopolitics and domestic politics now. A lot of times what happens over there happens right here. Someone had said Zoran Mandami. I don't know where Zoran is on this. I don't know. But I mean, hopefully he said something about it. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. I mean, but when you look at this here, she mentioned it a little bit. I was going to show this one, but the Instagram ones aren't as great, but I'll just show you the picture because it was cutting out. But Assemblywoman Stephanie Zinnerman, she was also talking about ending deed theft. Deed theft ends here. Black elders in central Brooklyn are being targeted, and we are fighting back with legislation, oversight, and global attention. I told you they usually go after the people. Like they go after Black people, but in particular, Black elders. That's usually who they go after. So what does that mean, right? That means that we have to educate each other. We really do. Same thing with that subprime mortgage crisis. Like they go after the elderly because they're like, well, they don't know any better. They're not going to read all the fine print. So I think this is where we have to come in and educate people in the community about how they shouldn't be signing anything, these types of things, without a lawyer present. Then there's the other issue where people could just forge their signature, right? Now, that's not something that they can control. And that's why I say, again, you would still have to make those changes in the system so that that wouldn't happen much longer. So I don't know how many people, knew about this story, but if you didn't know, maybe you know now. All right, we got one more story for you, ladies and gents. Yes, we do. Do me a solid and smash that like if you haven't had a chance to do so. And we're going to keep it moving and grooving for our final story. What's really interesting to me, how people move sometimes in spaces. Caroline Leavitt, who is Donald Trump's press secretary, was just recently at a Turning Point USA event that was hosted by Erika Kirk at George Washington University. And you guys have got to see this. We're going to play part of this because I think it's very telling. For one, access is interesting, right? Like this just goes to show you the proximity that Turning Point USA has to the current presidential administration. Like, this is no joke. Like, of course, Erika Kirk has that proximity to Donald Trump. Charlie Kirk had that proximity and everything too. But it's just like, we have people in this country that can't even get access to their Congress members, and they're their constituents. But this organization that is basically out there working for the Republican Party, you see how they just got that access like that, where Caroline Leavitt can come in and Donald Trump can just come in like that. What that tells you also is that these people, I'm keeping it real, Turning Point USA, these people are never going to criticize the administration. So let's get into what Caroline Leavitt said. I didn't know she was pregnant too, by the way, but let's get into this.
Hello. This is a great turnout. Hello, GW. This is awesome. So we were talking backstage for a little bit. You don't look pregnant.
I feel it, girl. 9 months pregnant today. Thank you. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. So let's hope that I don't have to go to GW hospital tonight.
Right. I hope so too. We were reminiscing backstage of how when I was pregnant, I was like 190 some pounds, and Charlie kept bringing me, he'd be like, "You want a hot fudge sundae tonight, don't you?" And I was like, "I actually do." He's like, "I'll come back, I'll go get one." And he just kept bringing all these different treats. Every night he'd come home from work, and that's how I was very fat and happy when I was pregnant. And you look amazing.
That's what husbands are for during pregnancy. And there has been no shortage of ice cream in our house either. So we're going.
You know what's interesting about this part right here is that they're talking about motherhood. And when Caroline Leavitt stands up at that podium and people are asking her about the kids that were killed at the school in Iran, no empathy, none of that. And she's pregnant right now. Erika Kirk right now was trying to make excuses for the Iran war. I'll show you that one in just a second. So it just goes to show you this whole thing about who they really consider to be important. To apparently, they're supposedly Christian women. Caroline Leavitt has a cross back on now. But this just goes to show you how people really are.
Curiously through it all. So share with us how you met Charlie. I love hearing these stories of how people, their favorite memory or how they met him or what they carry with them of Charlie.
Yeah. So I was first introduced to Charlie, as you know, during my congressional campaign in 2022. I ran for Congress up in New Hampshire, which is my home state. We have some Granite Staters. Hi, guys. The first in the nation primary state. That's how I was introduced to politics. I came to DC. I worked in President Trump's White House in the first term, started as an intern. And then, unfortunately, Joe Biden was installed as president of the United States. So I had to choose a different job. And I went over to Capitol Hill, and I was a communications director for former Congresswoman, soon to be former Elise Stefanik. And she actually really encouraged and inspired me to run for office. So I said, heck yeah, let's do it. And I launched my congressional campaign. And
so I wanted you to hear this path that Caroline Leavitt had, because this is important. She started as an intern. Then she went on to work as communications director for Elise Stefanik, who's no longer running for governor anymore, by the way, in New York. Elise Stefanik, staunch Zionist. You've seen some of the rhetoric I've played from her on this show. And you see that's who Caroline was working for. I'm telling you this because I'm trying to point something out. When she stands at that podium for the press conference, she has already been fed what to say. Even if the truth is staring her in her face about Israel and Gaza, etc., she is not going to tell you the truth. You don't get to just go work for Elise Stefanik just because you were an intern. You get to go work for her because you're aligned on similar views and values. Crazy times, folks.
Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA were the only organization in the political world that supported me. The entire establishment in this city were with my opponent in the primary, but I think Charlie loved that I was a young person who was stepping up to the plate, and he and Tyler reached out, flew me out to Arizona, met them at the headquarters, and then they said, we're on board fully, and they truly were throughout the entire primary. We met at the investor retreat in Arizona. They introduced me to all of these MAGA Patriot donors who contributed to my campaign. And I'll never forget it because Charlie gave me his word that he would support me, and he did all the way through, not just through that congressional run in the primary, and then in the general election when I did lose to the Democrat candidate, but God closed that door but opened another, which led me now to the White House podium, and Charlie was one of the first people the night that President Trump appointed me to this role that I'm in to congratulate me and say how proud he was. So I'll never forget that, and he's amazing.
Wonder what Charlie Kirk would say if he were alive today about what they're saying and the way that they're moving with this war in Iran. So I wanted you guys to hear that so you can understand how people move in this space and how they get to where they are. Guys, you know, number one, it's hard to become an intern at the White House. You guys know this? You guys know, like when I was in college, how many people I knew that applied for internships at the White House? It's one of the hardest internships to get in the country. Not exaggerating. And then to go from that to being a communications director for a congressperson, then trying to run her own campaign, and then boom, now she's press secretary. So she moved in certain circles that would get her to where she is. Now, listen to what she says here about the Trump administration. Again, this is George Washington University, TPUSA event there, and Erika Kirk is hosting Caroline Levitt.
True Donald Trump fashion.
What do you feel is the best thing about working for the Trump administration and the White House currently?
There's so many things I love about this job. For me, working with the press, as we like to call it, the fake news media, and they really are the fake news media. I see some cameras back there. I don't know if we welcomed anyone from the fake news. I'd be happy to take their questions if we did.
So do you see how she's still doing her job even during the interview? She's saying it's the fake news media, the fake news media. Erika Kirk is just sitting there and then just smiling, you know, right? Now, we all criticize corporate media, but the problem that you'll notice with Caroline and with the Trump administration is that they're totally fine with conservative media. They're totally fine with the media that does not hold Donald Trump accountable. So they're fine with Fox News. Everything else they have a problem with. I got a problem with all of it. I have a problem with all of the corporate media because they have a tendency to just report what the State Department wants you to know and not all the other facts. That's why people come to independent media, because they leave things out, which is intentional. But that's all of it. That's not just the New York Times. That's not just CNN. That's Fox News too. Right? Let's continue on.
But for me, the best part of the job is working for a president who is so transparent. Like what you guys hear from President Trump and see from him on social media and on TV is exactly what we hear and see from him behind the scenes. Let me just assure you.
He's very real.
He is very real. He keeps it real. You saw it yesterday.
He keeps it real, but he's always caught in lies. You see this? So that's her job as press secretary, to tell people that the president is doing the right thing and he's keeping it real. We catch Donald Trump in lies all the time. All the time.
Yesterday on full display. Yes.
Like what you see is what you get. He is so authentic, which for me as his spokesperson makes my job easy, because when I walk in there and I say, sir, this story is coming out. Truth, what do you want me to say? He just lays it on the table. There's no guessing, there's no questioning, there's no spin. It's just, it is what it is with him.
And she just showed you and made you realize that he tells her what to say. So she's just a puppet. And in that case, instead of the president standing behind the podium himself and answering those questions, they send out the press secretary to do that. That's what the press secretary is for. But what did she just tell you? He tells her what to say. And what kills me is that Caroline Leavitt and Erika Kirk, they claim to be such Christian, God-fearing women. And you just, the lies. I don't understand how this woman can lie all the time. I don't understand it. I don't understand how you can claim to be this devout Christian or whatever who is pregnant right now, and you get up there behind the podium and you just have no problem. Just fuck those kids in Iran. No problem saying that. They're all just paid puppets. And Caroline Leavitt likes the perks and she wants to keep her job. Wild, man.
And so as his spokeswoman, I'm very grateful for that, because I saw my predecessor in this role have a bit of a hard time, I think. And I think it's because she wasn't able to communicate with her boss in a very open and transparent way. And so the president's accessibility and transparency, not just to me and the rest of the West Wing staff, but to you, the American people, and to the news media, is so refreshing. And everything he says is exactly how he feels. There's no guessing. And he's honest and authentic about how he believes, and it makes my job much easier. And that's one of the things I love most about the job. Also, we have never know what you're going to get when you walk into the White House these days. Every day is an adventure, for sure.
Is there anything that keeps you up at night with this job?
Wait for that. My boss is up all night and probably going to call at any hour.
Because he sleeps very, very little.
Very little.
Yeah.
Like maybe 4 hours a night.
That's probably part of the problem. Maybe 4 hours a night, right? So I want you guys to realize, like, number one, the proximity and access means that these people are never going to say anything that is negative about the current administration, because they're going to lose that access. Turning Point USA essentially exists as a vehicle to support not just the Trump administration, but the Republican Party. So they're never going to go against them even when they're wrong. And they're not going to want to lose that access. Caroline Leavitt doesn't want to lose her job. She probably has more political ambitions. So she's not going to go against, even when the president is wrong, she's not going to. This is the gatekeeping that we've talked about before. That is like they control what is said in those spaces. And that if you ever want to go anywhere else politically after this administration is over, you better play the game or they'll end it for you as well. Now, I want to show you what Erika just said on Twitter, because I thought this was pretty damning. Let's go to Erika here. She's getting a lot of people are coming after her for this one, but holy crap. So she's talking about the Iran war. I don't even know why she brought this up. She would have been better off just being quiet. Let me show you what she just said. So, regardless of your opinion on Operation Epic Fury of your political affiliation, let me go back. Regardless of your opinion on Operation Epic Fury of your political affiliation, we have the greatest military in the world. Its strength lies not just in power, but in the courage, discipline, and sacrifice of our troops. God bless our men and women in uniform. So you see, these are, hold on, make this bigger. These are the words of the quote unquote Christian women that you just saw in that video. Erika Kirk, God bless the men and women in uniform. Does Erika Kirk tell you, God bless the kids who were killed in Iran? Does Erika Kirk say, God bless those kids who were killed in Gaza? Huh? Does Erika Kirk say, God bless? Because if you're Christian, you're supposed to be loving and caring, and especially when it comes to children. She jumped over the kids that were killed in the school that the U.S. killed in that school and went to the men and the women in uniform. Talk about tone deaf. And this whole thing that Caroline Leavitt is trying to push about these Judeo-Christian values, I'm telling you, they keep trying to push this Judeo-Christian. First of all, I never heard of this until fairly recently. And I grew up in the church. And why does Judeo come before Christian? Where is this coming from all of a sudden? People just invent shit. Ain't no Judeo-Christian. It's Christian. Now they trying to tell you something else. And essentially, for those who practice Islam, for those who are Muslim, how many times they're going to tell you that they're nothing, that those people don't matter? How many times they're going to pretend like those aren't human beings that are being killed? Got to pay attention. We got to pay attention. But it makes me wonder about this whole access game. It really makes me wonder. And I've said this before, that like the proximity that they have to the president, the proximity that they have to the administration, no matter what Donald Trump does, they are never going to hold him accountable. And that's concerning. All right, ladies and gents, a quick announcement here. Just don't want to forget, we do have our first mutual aid event of the year. That is in May. So Boston Mutual Aid is hosting a pre-Mother's Day brunch and donation. That is going to be on May 9th. We're donating gift baskets along with diapers and toiletries. You can send items to our P.O. box here. This is what we're asking for if you want to send items to our P.O. box. Diapers, and we're also asking for like diapers for babies, not adult diapers. Diapers for babies. We're asking for personal hygiene products, body wash, shampoo. We're telling people if you want to send feminine hygiene, you need to send sanitary pads, not tampons. That was the advice that's been given to us before by the homeless shelters. And you can mail it here. There's that P.O. box number for you. If you want to send those items, you can send them to the P.O. box. If you don't have items to send and you want to donate to the Spot Fund, you can do that here. And we can purchase some of those items. Our goal is 2,000. We'll see how we do. But we're going to do a brunch for the mothers. And we're also going to have those donations there. So let me go ahead and share here. I'll share the link in the chat for you guys. And thank you so much for those if you can help with that. So yeah, that'll be our first mutual aid event of this year. I should be hosting another mutual aid workshop later this month. So I will let you guys know about that. So if you want to learn how to do mutual aid, you can come to my workshop. I try to do it once a month. All right, ladies and gents, that is it for me. Eric's going to come on and close out the show. And I think Eric has something to share with you guys as well about 11 demands.
Yes. All right. Yes, we got a new Twitter X account. I don't know. Do you still call it Twitter?
A lot of times. Yeah, I forget to say X sometimes.
It's such a dumb name. I mean,
I know.
Elon is like such a child. We're going to call it X. And everyone will just say X. It's going to be this incredible. It's like, really, dude?
Yeah.
But anyway,
I hear
call
you.
it Twitter X. But yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. But I think we'll let you get on with your Sunday. We've got a few super chats and things to wrap up with here.
All righty. All right, guys, have a good night. Keep up the fight.
All right. You can catch Sabby live next on Tuesday. Our next live show will be Tuesday at 7 p.m. Usual Tuesday schedule. But yes, as far as the aforementioned Twitter account, basically, there is now 11 demands on Twitter X. And if you want to find out where that is, because or I'll ask if you're on Twitter X social media to check it out, give it a follow. If you see something good on there, give it a repost. If you go to 11demands.org right now, on the lead page, there's a nice little header here for it. And yeah, out there on the old Twitter X is 11 Demands on Twitter. Yeah, no one had 11 Demands as a username before that, so there you go. That was good, nice and free, and easy to find. And you can see 11 Demands post sometimes, highlighting the Substack and of course the Sabby show and good stuff on there. So please do, if you do use Twitter X at all, or if you have an account on there, give it a follow. And if you see something good, give it a repost, or at least a like here and there, but yeah, there you go. On the Twitter X. Let me get that out of here. Oh, let me show. There was one other thing I wanted to highlight. This was on. Let me see if I can get that story. So there was a story about. One story was about India. The story India is making purchases, oil purchases directly from Iran now. What's happened is Trump and the U.S. government has like eased up on the sanctions because they're worried about the oil prices and whatnot. And so now you have India making direct purchases, which is interesting. We got a war going on, but we can still do, of course, direct purchases because oil and the markets and the billionaire profits come first. But I just want to see, there was one other story. Let me see if I can paste this in here the right way. Yeah, that's getting in there. I noticed this one too. This is from a tech website called Tom's Hardware, but they were noting how Iran has been hitting, at least has made a few missile attacks on some of these AWS data centers that are out there. And it shows a real vulnerability. There's all kinds of tech in the region. I mean, this is the age that we're living in now. All kinds of systems and just anywhere you look, we're very dependent on technology and high technology and data centers. And we notice it when they go out, right? When there's an outage, a lot of times you hear things aren't working or Twitter X isn't working or other things, and you'll hear, oh, it's an AWS outage. That would, a lot of times it's a piece of hardware deep in the AWS system that goes belly up and they have to replace it or reboot it or whatever. But in this case, if you're in the Middle East and you're having internet trouble, it could be from missile strikes, because Iran has made it clear that if their bridges and their infrastructure, that the things that they need to live is going to get hit, then they're going to hit high technology places like this is in Bahrain and in Dubai, in hitting these AWS centers. And you got AWS reporting hard down, that this stuff is out because it got whacked. So it's just yet another way that this war is going to hurt a lot of things in a lot of different ways. I think I can safely say the position of the Sabby Sabs show is that, we don't want any of this stuff. We want peace. We demand peace. And we need to always be connecting those dots as to why these wars are happening. When you do connect those dots and all the way up to the top, you get to that billionaire class that calls the shots, that has the power. And they do it through corruption, right? MCDS. They have the money, the M part of it. They use part of that money to corrupt our politics and our government. There's also media and corporate corruption. And we have to recognize that, where that comes from, that corruption. And we need to go to the D of the MCDS, have clear demands, right? A good clear demand is end the corruption. And you have the sub demands, end the wars and our standard of living being hit. you get economy, healthcare, the whole bit, but it all connects back into the billionaires and the billionaire corruption. So you can see more about that at the old 11demands.org, and you can be catching and keeping up with 11 Demands on that Twitter account. Also, we have the Substack, and if you sign up to the Substack, you'll get occasional emails from 11 Demands if there are articles or other things. Like you can hear about, we had the candidates forum the other day. If you're on the Substack, you get emails about that. Also, be sure to subscribe to the Sabby Sab Show Substack. You get updates on there as well, and that will help you keep up. And it's good. It's good to be subscribed to those things, so you're not just dependent on notifications from YouTube or from other social media, because sometimes they like to mess around with, maybe not notifying as many people when we out here in indie lefty media are doing something. So subscribe and support and all that good stuff. All right, we got a few super chats before we wrap up our Sunday here. Thanks for this super chat from Measured Man, who says, the system is set up this way, and I think we're finding a lot of programs are like this, and it's up to us to push for change. I think, some of these are going back to the deed story, the deed fraud. The system right now is what's happened is the system is getting worse and worse because you have that corruption in it. You have the billionaire class who are bending the system to work in their favor, in their interests. You'll notice billionaires are getting richer and richer through all this stuff, while we get poorer and poorer and struggle more and more. The way to get to the better world is to have clear demands, demand an end to that corruption, to the way that system operates, and have the clear solutions. And I think if you look at 11 Demands, I think you can see both of those things. Shout out to Ms. Bond for this super chat. These deed thefts are obviously criminal. This is a less violent way of gentrification and international refuge. Homeowners befriend a realtor. Saying to homeowners, if I think the advice he's giving homeowners, befriend a realtor who can easily track the deed of your property. Indeed. And shout out to Courtney Smith for this super chat, who says, to Sabby, when you have time, look up Jessica Jackson of Chicago Flips Red. She's going through similar, if not the exact same issue as New York. Thanks for keep that in mind. You can also email suggestions to the show. And a shout out to Ala826 for being a member for 13 months. That's over a year. And he says, put this special super chat for being a member for that long. Demons pretending to be followers of Christ. These people on the trajectory they are on are in for a rude reawakening on the day of resurrection. Thanks for that one. And thanks so much for the super sticker from James Green. Appreciate that. Appreciate you. And thanks for the super chat, Kevin Wayne. Judeo-Christian goes all the way back to the 70s with Francis Schaeffer and the Moral Majority. It's creating a coalition around, quote, moral issues such as abortion and gay marriage. Yeah, I mean, I always read the old Judeo-Christian thing as kind of a way of doing a coalition between those two things, and trying to kind of use it as a way to leverage power by bringing those groups together, whether or not they really should be, or whether they really have the same interests or not. But yeah, all right. And we also have a couple, actually we have a few out here on the Rumble Rants. Let me bring that up and check that out. There we go. Thanks much for the rant on Rumble from Meteor Dreams, who says, Sabby, can you cover Japan? They are reverting to their Nazi past. They are hostile toward immigrants, especially of color, and Elon merged Japanese Twitter with American Twitter. Yeah, I mean, I know that used to be right after World War II, and you had the Allies occupying Germany and Japan, and one of the outcomes, one of the lasting effects of that occupation, and then rearranging, and reestablishing their governments and their systems, was that they would never be militaristic. Was the idea that they wouldn't have armies, and so we wouldn't have, this kind of World War II again. And it does seem like, for the first time, we are seeing those countries look at reestablishing their militaries and dipping their toe into that business again, and it's not good. Got a little more here in the queue. Let me find it. More from Mr. Meteor Dreams. All right. Also, thanks for this one. He says, there is a lot of glazing of countries like Japan and South Korea by right-wingers saying that they are model utopias because there are no black or Muslims. This glazing doesn't seem natural. I mean, of course, it can be easier if your country is very monolithic, right? It's dealing with some of those issues. And also, Meteor Dreams, thanks for this one. It scares me that all these right-wingers are pushing the race, science, and IQ bullshit pushed by the right, saying that only East Asians and white are deserving to live and others should be deleted. All right. Thanks for those. I think we got one more hanging out here. Thanks for this Rumble rant from Sylvia. He says, yeah, Sabby, I saw this on George Galloway today. He talked about this thing with Argentina, and a lot of Nazi war escaped to Argentina after World War II. Yeah, and there's, this idea of making a refuge there, I think. All right. That is going to, I think, do it for us today. I think we had a good show today with had our interview with Professor Marandi, and some good stories. So check us out on Tuesday. In the meantime, keep an eye on 11 Demands, on Twitter and on Substack and on the site. And we're going to have some things coming for you there as well. And that's about it. Next live show on Tuesday. And until then, I'm going to wrap it up with the usual. Have a good night. Keep up with that fight. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.